I want to welcome you to my capstone presentation. This capstone examines the aftermath of deplatforming influential extremists and explores its impact on toxicity, drawing on research which indicated it decreases after deplatforming, while highlighting the need for responsible social media usage and owner intervention to safeguard users. I'm Heath Farley, and I'm currently pursuing a master's degree in applied media psychology at Fielding Graduate University. I've had the privilege of working alongside Dr. Terry Thompson, my capstone advisor, on a project that I'm excited to share with you today: the societal reactions of deplatforming extremist social media users. This is an image of a door at the United States Capitol marked by protesters with the words "Murder the Media" on January 6, 2021. This presentation revolves around the aftermath of deplatforming influential social media extremists. In media psychology, the relationship between developers, producers, and users determine how individuals engage with the media they consume. This presentation will explore how the removal of certain influential figures from social media platforms impact the perceptions, interactions, and responses of their followers. My interest in the intersection of politics and social media has been a driving force at Fielding. Through this capstone research, I found a deeper understanding of the interplay between media, psychology, and politics. In exploring the landscape of deplatforming, extremism, and online reactions, some of the material presented in this presentation may be triggering and have explicit language. Dr. Pamela Rutledge defines media psychology as the continuous relationship between, quote, technology developer, content producer, content perceptions, and user response, end quote. This relationship exemplifies how each component influences and determines the actions and behaviors of others. Advancing technologies like social media introduce, quote, capabilities that are redefining the way we work, play, and communicate, end quote. Social media was once used by passive audiences with the simple goal of worldwide connection, but has evolved to be a resource, quote, driven by individual differences and motivators, end quote. Deplatforming is the action made by social media owners to, quote, remove and ban a registered user from a mass communication medium, such as a social networking or blogging website, end quote. Social media company owners and their oversight committees reserve the right to suspend any user. They also determine the length of the suspension and whether the deplatformed user can return to the social media site. Deplatforming allows social media owners to guard online publics from the dangers of hate speech and misinformation and other toxic internet behaviors. However, deplatforming also presents an ethical concern to those opposed to social media owners' decision, often claiming that it infringes on the opportunity that free presses can, quote, inform citizens of their leaders' successes or failures, convey the people's needs and desires to government bodies, and provide a platform for the open exchange of information and ideas, end quote. Deplatforming aims to curb increasingly toxic internet behaviors and to control the communities that are built from that toxicity. In 2021, researchers Yaver et al. Found that toxicity decreased among the followers of Alex Jones, an influential internet extremist who was deplatformed in 2018. In removing extremist influencers from the Twitter platform, Yaver et al. Found that posts that referenced deplatformed users decreased by 91.77%. Additionally, new users tweeting about deplatformed users decreased by 89.65% on average. Toxicity significantly decreased across internet extremist supporters to a total toxicity score of 5.84%. The United States Department of Justice defines domestic violent extremists as, quote, United States-based actors who, without direction or inspiration from a foreign terrorist group or foreign power, seek to further political or social goals through unlawful acts of violence, end quote. DVE has not only increased in recent years, but has also become more complicated due to emerging violent ideologies, the impact of social media, and the response to recent political and social events. The Department of Justice also found that domestic terrorism cases increased twofold following the attack on the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. Mainstream social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, known as X since July 23, 2023, are some of the most visited websites in the world. Facebook has more than 2 billion active users, with several media tools like photos, messages, and text posts. Facebook is an ideal platform for personal and business-focused users. Twitter, known as X since July 23, 2023, became one of the most visited websites in the world in 2013, with more than 100 million active users and 340 million tweets sent per day. In October 2022, Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk acquired Twitter for $44 billion. Reddit is a forum-based social media platform. The site is comprised of more than 1 million subreddits or niche communities centered around various topics of conversation. Unlike other social media platforms that require links of personal information, Reddit allows their Redditors, users of the site, anonymity. YouTube is a video sharing social media platform owned by Google. Two types of participants cyclically interact on YouTube: video creators and video viewers. Success on YouTube is measured through subscriber count and video likes. The rise in deplatformed, high-profile social media users has led to the establishment of alternative platforms designed for conservative-leaning audiences. These are free speech-centered platforms that intentionally combat deplatforming. Gab is a blogging website that is a hotbed for hate, anti-Semitism, and right-wing nationalism. Parler is a platform that provides their users the opportunity to participate in social media without having to conform to the restrictive rules and expectations of mainstream social media platforms. At its peak during the week of the 2020 presidential election, Parler drew an active daily audience of 4.5 million users. Truth Social was founded and launched in October 2021 by former President Donald Trump as a means to combat mainstream platforms which he claimed threatened conservative ideologies. Trump was deplatformed from mainstream social media sites like Facebook and Twitter after the United States Capitol attack on January 6, 2021, but was an outspoken opponent of social media's alleged anti-conservative bias for years. Trump has an exclusivity agreement with Truth Social, which dictates that he must wait at least 6 hours after he posts on Truth Social before he can post on any other platform. Communities of like-minded social media users can be found and promoted online. New members can be recruited, and current events can be reframed around extremist points of view. In the aftermath of mainstream social media bans, alternative platforms give users online spaces where they can regroup. Banned social media users migrate from platform to platform. In 2021, researchers Ali et al. Analyzed 29 million Gab posts to identify users who migrated from Twitter and Reddit once they were suspended from those mainstream platforms. 73.68% of new accounts on Gab were created after users were deplatformed from Twitter and Reddit. Gab users were openly critical about their suspension from Twitter and often claimed their ban a violation of their constitutional freedom of speech. Researchers Ali et al. Found that 60% of users who migrated to Gab were slightly less toxic, but another 20% of those users who migrated became more toxic. Hate speech spiked on Twitter and toxicity increased on both mainstream and alternative social media platforms after the 2020 presidential election and after January 6, 2021. Researchers Buntain et al. Found that on Twitter, toxic behavior increased 10 to 15% after December 2020, but leveled out 2 months later. The differential association theory is Edwin H. Sutherland's 1939 criminology theory that criminal behavior is learned through observable actions. In this theory, delinquent behavior is rooted in favorable violations of laws rather than unfavorable violations of laws. When led by political leaders, extremists who feel their freedoms are in danger engage in criminal behavior. This theory emphasizes that domestic political violence is necessary and justifiable. The online universe welcomes anyone with an internet connection to forge a relationship with violence, harmful behavior, and like-minded communities. As hate groups grow, the probability that young social media users will be exposed to and become involved with these groups increases. The differential association theory then leads to the interpretation that negative, sometimes unacceptable behaviors are acted on in a reframed positive mindset. Corporate social responsibility, CSR theory, is the self-regulation theory of privately owned businesses. CSR is the intention of company and brand owners to improve the well-being of their employees, the greater society outside their company, and the wider global environment. Social media owners' decision to deplatform extremists are based on negative internet behaviors. This highlights the important role social media companies have on democracy. Companies like social media must be aware that they are great contributors to political conversations and movements. They must also consider their places in the minds and decisions of their consumers, who may find themselves deciding not only between platform versus platform, but political ideology versus political ideology. The 1947 Supreme Court case, Miami Herald Publishing Company versus Tornillo, established that privately owned public spaces, such as social media, have the freedom to control content posted on their platform. This case stemmed from criticism of a Florida House candidate, Tornillo, in the Miami Herald, leading the court to rule that Florida's 1913 law, which mandated publication content, violated press freedom. One of the biggest challenges deplatforming poses is the accusation that it directly infringes on internet users' constitutional freedom of speech. Many extremist social media users like Alex Jones claim that deplatforming is a form of censorship. However, social media companies are privately owned, not government-owned entities, therefore far from the dictations of the First Amendment. The First Amendment provides that, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble, and to petition the government of a redress of grievances, end quote. Despite anti-conservative bias claims from leaders like former President Donald Trump, social media companies argue that deplatforming is necessary in instances where observable abusive behavior harms their users. The image in the background is of Alex Jones speaking into a megaphone at the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. Alex Jones is an outspoken, far-right social media influencer who founded his media company InfoWars in 1999. In 1998, Alex Jones was an unpopular radio host and conspiracy theorist in Texas. The Austin Chronicle's Lee Nichols said of Jones in 1998, quote, Alex Jones is not ignorant of what people are saying about him. They're whispering behind his back. Well, no, actually, they're saying it right to his face, that he's nuts. Despite that, or maybe because of it, he's also something of a rising star in Austin's media scene, end quote. Jones's popularity grew in the early 2000s after several successful interviews, especially after an interview with actor Charlie Sheen. His outrageous rhetoric, conspiracy theories, and popularity caught the attention of Donald Trump in 2015. Jones then became an active participant in the Trump presidential campaign and Trump's loudest supporter. From his notoriety, Jones gained more than 1.3 billion video views on YouTube, and the InfoWars show became syndicated across 160 radio stations. Jones's conspiracy theories often involve Democratic politicians like the Clintons, 9/11 hoaxes, and repulsive claims about the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. This is Alex Jones.
You know what it's like to gut up to this and go out every day and go past the peer pressure and come out day one and say 9/11 was an inside job and lose most of the radio stations I was on? You know what it's like to go to sleep every night knowing you were... You're in a death battle now. You're in a death battle, New World Order. We know you're in one with us. Comprende? Comprehended? The whole takeover failed, didn't it? And now, who gets to talk to the president? Who gets to talk to the Supreme Court justices? Matt Drudge, Alex Jones. Donald, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. I just want to finish by saying your reputation's amazing. I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot, but you'll...
The truth is, we'd already taken the nation back psychologically. I mean everything I say when I'm being serious. And more, I'm serious probably 95% of the time. Even when I'm being satirical and trying to point something out, but I am letting the dog off the leash.
You don't trust government, you think they're incompetent. But
I love Trump.
But you love Trump, and you also think the government can do all these things.
No, I see the globalist-run government upset by Trump because they know what he's trying to do, so I'm trying to give that a shot at reforming it. It took me about a year with Sandy Hook to come to grips with the fact that the whole thing was fake. I looked at all the angles of Newtown, and I made my statements long before the media even picked up on it.
I lost my son. I buried my son. I held my son with a bullet hole through his head.
Alex Jones and other InfoWars contributors spouted Sandy Hook conspiracy theories on at least a dozen occasions between 2013 and 2018. 18 Sandy Hook families filed a lawsuit in October 2018 based on Jones's harassment and propagation of conspiracy theories about the 2012 event. The 2018 lawsuit led to Apple removing Jones's InfoWars podcast from their streaming services. Jones was eventually deplatformed from Facebook and YouTube based on his toxic internet behavior. And on October 12, 2022, a Connecticut jury verdict ordered, quote, Jones to pay at least $965 million in damages to the numerous families of the Sandy Hook shooting. Jones faced another lawsuit in Austin, Texas, where other Sandy Hook families claimed $150 million in damages from Jones's conspiracy theories. During both trials in Connecticut and Texas, Jones and his defense teams claimed that the lawsuits were in direct violation of his First Amendment rights. In 2022, Jones appeared at his Texas trial with his mouth covered and the words "Save the First" written on tape. At this trial, Jones and his team failed to supply the court with critical evidence like emails. The Sandy Hook families hoped Jones's evidence would prove that he knew that his statements about the event were false. Without evidence, however, no argument could take place. Therefore, Judge Maya Guerra Gamble quickly issued her judgment and declared the Sandy Hook parents the victors against Jones. In front of the Texas jury, Jones finally admitted that his rhetoric was irresponsible and that the Sandy Hook shooting was 100% real.
Received in evidence of you stating your belief at that time that no one died at Sandy Hook, that the whole thing was fake. Do you understand, as you sit here today, how crazy that is?
I have said before that there have been so many lies and so many things in the past, and I was under a lot of pressure. And I truly, when I said those statements, when I say something, I mean it, that I really could believe that it was totally staged at that point. And I was basing that off of really Steve Buchenik, who is a
has been a very prestigious person.
Do you understand now that it was absolutely irresponsible of you to do that?
It was, especially since I've met the parents, and it's 100% real, as I said on the radio yesterday, and as I said here yesterday, it's 100% real, and the media still ran with lies that I was saying it wasn't real on air yesterday. It's incredible. They won't let me take it back. They just want to keep me in the position of being...
After the Sandy Hook trials, Alex Jones, InfoWars, and their parent company, Free Speech Systems, LLC, were ordered to pay about $1.5 billion in damages to the families of the Sandy Hook victims. As a result, Jones filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in Houston, Texas, where he claimed to have between $1 million and $10 million in assets. NPR's Becky Sullivan, however, reported in 2022 that Jones and Free Speech Systems LLC, quote, have a combined net worth as high as $270 million, and that the company still brings in millions of dollars in revenue each month, end quote. In September 2018, Jones testified at the United States Capitol that social media companies like Facebook and Twitter were shadow banning conservative influencers like himself. Shadow banning is the accusation that social media owners, administrators, or moderators hide posts but do not remove them completely. While at the Capitol, Jones spoke against social media companies, news media companies, and politicians like Senator Marco Rubio. Between two congressional hearings, Jones confronted CNN senior media reporter Oliver Darcy and harassed him for more than 10 minutes.
Wait, the deplatforming didn't work.
But here's the question. Here's a question.
Hey, don't touch me again, man. I'm asking you not to touch me.
Well, sure, I was just patted you nicely.
I know, but I don't want to be. I don't know
you,
man. I don't know who you are.
It's not just going
You're not going to get arrested,
Amendment.
man. You're not going to get arrested. I'll take care of it myself.
Oh, he'll beat me up.
I didn't say
that.
that.
You didn't know who I am, but
I'm
he's so mad. You're not going to silence me. Jeffrey Dahmer got to face his accusers. The Nazis in Nuremberg got to face their accusers, but not me. You know why I don't get to face my accusers? Because I've done nothing they say I've done. The truth is, Facebook and Google are giant Democrat Party bots. When I say don't sexualize kids, then they sit there and take that down. China is running the show. They own all 6 major Hollywood production houses. They own the national debt. They bought off all of our politicians. They were given the Panama Canal. Half this government is run off pedophilia. CNN is not just fake news. It's the criminal news network that works as a racketeering crime syndicate.
You guys can talk to this clown.
You're going to go down the history books at the criminal news network. This is one of the main people right here who thinks you have no memory, who sits there and lobbies. Show him. That sits there and lobbies people to take other news off. Look at those eyes, folks. If you want to see the eyes of a rat. No, seriously, just look at the camera. Look at those eyes. Look at that slobbering to the system. And the criminals at CNN, all their warmongering and death and all their fake news. And then running around trying to police the internet and try to shut people down. And then you think people are so stupid. On CNN a week later you say no one's censoring anybody, no one's pushing for censoring. And then you say that Trump is the one attacking the press when all he does is stand up to your lies. Just look at this guy's eyes, man. That is who will rule your life. Him and people like Stelter. That is who want to look at that smile. He's even more evil looking in person.
Some of the things about the decisions that you make.
Seriously, you don't even respond because we're just scum. You sit up there at CNN with no viewers, no followers, everyone can't stand you. And no matter, you can shut everyone down on earth, no one will like you. You understand that? You'll never have billions and billions of fans and followers. You'll never have people that love you.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say, Alex?
You are.
Jones posted the video of him confronting Darcy to his personal Twitter account, which led Twitter to formally deplatform him from their site. Twitter responded to the video and their decision with the statement, quote, "We welcome everyone to express themselves on our service. Sometimes expressions may be offensive, controversial, and/or bigoted. We prohibit targeted behavior that harasses, threatens, or uses fear to silence others and take action when they violate our policies," end quote. This is an image of a protester dressed as George Washington debating with a Capitol police officer at the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. In 2019, former President Trump claimed, without evidence, that major social media companies like Facebook and Twitter were biased against him and other conservative users. He further suggested that, quote, U.S. regulators should sue them for anti-conservative leanings, end quote. Social media owners defended themselves against the criticisms of bias and that bans were within their right. They argued that deplatforming was necessary in instances where observable abusive behavior served to protect their users. Michael Beckerman, group president of the Internet Association, who represents Facebook, Google, and others, responded to Trump's accusations. Quote, Internet companies are not biased against any political ideology, and conservative voices in particular have used social media to great effect. Internet companies depend on their users' trust from across the political spectrum to grow and succeed, end quote. Election certification is the process of officially tabulating votes from a particular election to ensure the utmost accuracy. Federal elections, including presidential elections, are certified by counting electoral college votes once both state and local governments certify individual votes. Once all 538 electoral college votes have been collected from each state's Capitol buildings, they are ceremoniously delivered to the United States Capitol in mahogany boxes, where Congress will count them in a joint session. Title III of the United States Code, Section 15, lays out the procedure. Congress shall be in session on the 6th day of January, succeeding every meeting of the electors. The Senate and House of Representatives shall meet in the hall of the House of Representatives at the hour of 1 o'clock in the afternoon on that day, and the President of the Senate shall be their presiding officer. 2 tellers shall be previously appointed on the part of the Senate and 2 on the part of the House of Representatives, to whom shall be handed, as they are opened by the President of the Senate, all the certificates and papers purporting to be certificates of electoral votes, which certificates and papers shall be opened, presented, and acted upon in the alphabetical order of the states. Upon such reading of any certificate or paper, the President of the Senate shall call for objections, if any. Every objection shall be made in writing and shall state clearly and concisely and without argument the ground thereof, and shall be signed by at least 1 senator and 1 member of the House of Representatives before the same shall be received. This is an image of a noose and gallows which were brought to the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. Social media sites like Gab and Parler served as beacons for bringing throngs of angry protesters to Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021. Alex Newhouse of The Conversation found that calls for extreme violence related to delaying the electoral certification spiked on Parler. These were posts that included harmful instigations of violence on politicians who declared that they would not object to the certification. Alex Newhouse found on social media conspiracy theories and calls for the public execution of Vice President Mike Pence, who was serving in his capacity as President of the Senate on January 6, 2021. Newhouse's investigation of social media on January 6 revealed that, quote, right-wing activists had been explicitly and open in their intentions for the January 6 demonstrations since at least mid-December, end quote. Specifically, a tweet from former President Trump on December 19, 2020, enticed his devoted social media followers to come to Washington, D.C. on January 6. This is Donald Trump replying to a tweet on December 19, 2020. Quote, a great report by Peter, statistically impossible to have lost the 2020 election. Big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there, will be wild, end quote. On January 6, 2021, President Trump used his personal social media platforms to continuously spread election misinformation and to call on Congress members to follow through with objections and support his false claims. This is Donald Trump quoting a tweet by Will Chamberlain. Quote, get smart Republicans, fight, end quote. Quote, they just happened to find 50,000 ballots late last night. The USA is embarrassed by fools. Our election process is worse than that of third world countries, end quote. These scoundrels are only toying with the @ David Perdue, a great guy, vote. Just didn't want to announce quite yet. They've got as many ballots as are necessary. Rigged election, end quote. As Congress gathered for the constitutional certification process, President Trump hosted a Save America rally at the White House's Ellipse. This rally was attended by Trump supporters and extremists who descended on Washington, D.C. to attend and delay the historic and chaotic certification in hopes that Trump would be incorrectly declared the victor of the contentious election.
All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. Today I will lay out just some of the evidence proving that we won this election, and we won it by a landslide. This was not a close election. You know, I say sometimes jokingly, but there's no joke about it, I've been in 2 elections, I won them both, and the second one I won much bigger than the first, okay? And I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. All he has to do, this is from the #1, or certainly one of the top constitutional lawyers in our country. He has the absolute right to do it. We're supposed to protect our country, support our Constitution, and protect our Constitution. States want to revote. The states got defrauded. They were given false information. They voted on it. Now they want to recertify. They want it back. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify. And we become president, and you are the happiest people. And I just spoke to Mike. I said, Mike, that doesn't take courage. What takes courage is to do nothing. That takes courage. And then we're stuck with a president who lost the election by a lot, and we have to live with that for 4 more years. We're just not going to let that happen. I also want to thank our 13 most courageous members of the U.S. Senate, Senator Ron Johnson, Senator Josh Hawley, Kelly Loeffler. And Kelly Loeffler, I'll tell you, she's been so great. She worked so hard. So let's give her and David a little special hand, because it was rigged against them. Let's give her and David. Kelly Loeffler, David Perdue. They fought a good race. They never had a shot. That equipment should never have been allowed to be used. And I was telling these people, don't let them use this stuff. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Our exciting adventures and boldest endeavors have not yet begun. My fellow Americans, for our movement, for our children, and for our beloved country. And I say this, despite all that's happened, the best is yet to come. So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol, and we're going to try and give, the Democrats are hopeless. They're never voting for anything. Not even one vote. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride, boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all for being here.
The following video contains explicit language and visuals that may be harmful or traumatizing to some audiences.
We are going to the
to walk down to the Capitol. You'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. We have come to
Invade the Capitol building.
do the right thing.
Take the Capitol.
Take it. Been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated.
Take the Capitol right
Everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building.
Take the fucking Capitol.
Come on, tighten up. Tighten up,
Come on, boys.
Let's not fucking yell that, all right?
We have a good group. We got about 30, 40 of us. We're sticking together and sticking to the plan. Y'all, we're 1 block away from the Capitol now. I'm probably going to go silent when I get there because I'm going to be a little busy.
Check out all this testosterone.
Proud boys.
Whose street? Our street! Whose street? Our street!
We're gonna storm the fucking Capitol. Fuck you fuckers.
USA! USA! Take that building! USA! We are taking our house!
I got a feeling they believe those 5 officers are going to stop some shit.
We love Trump! We love Trump!
DC is a motherfucking war zone!
Fucking one! Whoa! Forward! This is what we came for,
You took an oath! Does that not mean a damn thing to you, does it?
Do you want your house back? Take it!
Get you 12 up to help maintain the lines. They're throwing firecrackers. Multiple capital injuries. Multiple capital injuries.
Capitol.
We're in the fucking Capitol, bro.
We need some additional squads in Rotunda. It's not for us about 200 people.
Here we go, Nancy! Are you in Nancy?
We need Capitol Police, I think, coming to the hallway. They're pounding on doors trying to find her. Yeah.
Please be advised there are masks under your seats. Please grab a mask, place it in your lap, and be prepared to don your mask in the event that we get a breach.
Well, we came this far. What do you say?
Drag them out!
Throughout the day, Trump pointed his social media pressure to his vice president. Trump mentioned Vice President Pence 3 times on his personal Twitter and Facebook accounts on January 6, 2021. Quote, if Vice President @Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency. Many states want to decertify the mistake they made in certifying incorrect and even fraudulent numbers in a process not approved by their state legislatures, which it must be. Mike can send it back, end quote. Quote, states want to correct their votes, which they now know were based on irregularities and fraud, plus corrupt powers were never received legislative approval. All Mike Pence has to do is send them back to the states and we win. Do it, Mike. This is a time for extreme courage. Quote, if Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or incorrect ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth, end quote. Trump's final post about Mike Pence came at a time on January 6, 2021, when the violence and chaos increased. Upset with Pence's supposed inaction, rioters began chanting, "Where's Mike Pence?" and "Hang Mike Pence" in and around the United States Capitol. A gallows and noose were brought to the Capitol campus to further drive the point of upset Trump supporters felt towards politicians. Secret Service directed Vice President Pence away from the rioters at the Capitol, but the Vice President refused to evacuate. From a secure place away from the rioters, Pence tweeted, quote, the violence and destruction taking place at the U.S. Capitol must stop, and it must stop now. Anyone involved must respect law enforcement officers and immediately leave the building. Peaceful protest is the right of every American, but this attack on our Capitol will not be tolerated, and those involved will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. End quote. This is an image of a statue of 12th President Zachary Taylor smeared with blood and covered with plastic at the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. 5 people lost their lives and many were injured at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. 4 were protesters like Ashley Babbitt, Benjamin Phillips, Kevin Greeson, and Roseanne Boyland. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick was put on life support after he was injured by protesters, then died later. 4 Washington, D.C. police officers, Gunter Hashida, Kyle DeFreytag, Jeffrey Smith, and Howard Liebengood, who all responded to calls at the Capitol, committed suicide in the months following January 6, 2021. As of May 2023, 1,033 rioters have been arrested, and 485 of them have received sentences. 277 are facing jail time, and 113 have been sentenced to house arrest. Owen Schroyer, an InfoWars host, pled guilty on June 23, 2023 for storming the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Schroyer unlawfully entered the Capitol through the West Front with another person suspected to be Alex Jones. Schroyer also admitted to saying, quote, today, on January 6, we declare death to tyranny. Death to tyrants, death to tyrants, death to tyrants, end quote. Schroyer's sentencing hearing is set for September 12, 2023. Damage to the Capitol building on January 6, 2021 included broken windows, doors, and furniture. Following the attack, images of a door marked with the words "Murder the Media" were shared on social media. In all, both security measures and repairs amounted to more than $30 million. Architect of the Capitol, steward of the building, J. Brett Blanton, and his staff helped shelter congressional staff, while others aided Capitol Police with water bottles for eye wash stations and reversed airflow to clear out chemicals, repellents, and pepper spray used during the attacks. At 6:27 p.m. on January 6, 2021, police had completely cleared out the Capitol of all rioters and protesters. Congress members were then allowed back to their chambers and the formal certification process resumed. Some senators President Trump counted on to hold up the certification with objections, including Kelly Loeffler, returned to the Capitol with changed minds.
To those who wreaked havoc in our Capitol today, you did not win. Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house. And as we reconvene in this chamber, the world will again witness the resilience and strength of our democracy. For even in the wake of unprecedented violence and vandalism at this Capitol, the elected representatives of the people of the United States have assembled again on the very same day to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. So may God bless the lost, the injured, and the heroes forged on this day. May God bless all who serve here and those who protect this place. And may God bless the United States of America. Let's get back to work.
What happened here today was an insurrection incited by the President of the United States. Those who choose to continue to support his dangerous gambit by objecting to the results of a legitimate democratic election will forever be seen as being complicit in an unprecedented attack against our democracy. Fairly or not, they'll be remembered for their role in this shameful episode in American history. That will be their legacy. I salute Senator Langford and Loeffler and Braun and Daines, and I'm sure others, who in the light of today's outrage have withdrawn their objection. No congressional audit is ever going to convince these voters, particularly when the president will continue to say that the election was stolen. The best way we can show respect for the voters who are upset is by telling them the truth. The truth is that President-elect Biden won the election. President Trump lost. I've had that experience myself. It's no fun.
And I cannot now in good conscience object to the certification of these electors. I believe that there were last-minute changes to the November 2020 election process and serious irregularities that resulted in too many Americans losing confidence not only in the integrity of our elections, but in the power of the ballot as a tool of democracy. Too many Americans are frustrated at what they see as an unfair system. Nevertheless, there is no excuse for the events that took place in these chambers today, and I pray that America never suffers such a dark day again.
There's many times we debate on this body, and we should. There's many times we can get heated. But should we also think for a moment, what do we put on social media? What do we convey to one another? Just because you have a personal opinion different than mine, you have a right to say it, but nobody has a right to become a mob. And we all should stand united in condemning the mob together.
Former President Trump's rhetoric during the Capitol attack on January 6, 2021, in addition to his history of making false election claims and spreading and promoting misinformation, earned him a 2-day suspension from Twitter, as well as a more permanent ban from Facebook and YouTube. On January 8, 2021, Twitter formally issued a permanent suspension of Trump's personal account, quote, due to the risk of further incitement of violence, end quote. In their official statement, Twitter acknowledged their role in allowing, quote, the public to hear from elected officials and world leaders directly, but these accounts are not above our rules entirely and cannot use Twitter to incite violence, among other things, end quote. Deplatforming does help control and decrease toxic internet behaviors by removing extremists from social media. Deplatforming does not, however, completely silence outspoken extremists because they can migrate to an alternative platform that is far less regulated and less controlling. The reach of alternative platforms like Gab, Parler, and Truth Social is limited because a hosting website oftentimes refuse to promote and support the site. This is the case for Parler, which has been temporarily shut down since late 2022 in order to comply to the rules of Apple's App Store. There's also a general shortage of genuinely new users on alternative platforms, as most users migrate from mainstream platforms or do not migrate at all. Despite spikes in attention and new users on alternative platforms, new user activity generally subsided over time. Alternative platforms are cul-de-sacs for recirculating the same radicalized ideas to the same groups of people. Since early 2023, former President Donald Trump has been allowed back onto the Meta-owned Facebook and Instagram social media platforms. After the events of January 6, 2021, Trump was suspended from the platforms indefinitely, quote, but that was later revised to a 2-year suspension after the platform's oversight board criticized the open-ended penalty, end quote. In 2023, Meta found that Trump's, quote, accounts no longer represented a serious risk to public safety, end quote. After Elon Musk formally acquired Twitter, he polled users about reinstating Trump's account, which was granted in November 2022. Despite being allowed back onto Twitter, Trump has not posted since January 8, 2021, when he announced that he would not attend Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20th, 2021. The decision to allow Trump back onto mainstream social media platforms was criticized, but he is still expected to, quote, follow Meta's rules. The company has left the door open if he flouts them, end quote. If someone who has been deplatformed, regardless of their prominence, can regain access to their platform, it sets a precedent that individuals may evade or eventually overcome the consequences of their actions. Deplatforming is a tool that social media owners use to control toxic language and behavior on online platforms. In recent years, some extremist social media users have used their platform to incite violence and spread hateful and conspiracy-based misinformation to their audiences. When deplatformed, many users may flock to alternative platforms that are not as regulated or moderated as mainstream platforms. In exceptional cases, some deplatformed social media users have the resources to establish their own platforms, as was the case for former President Donald Trump's Truth Social. Alternative platforms are, however, less populated and largely underfunded compared to mainstream platforms. Deplatforming may serve as a cyclical pattern of behavior where users suspended from one platform may migrate to another. Thank you for attending my capstone presentation. Are there any questions?